Hello, and I want to thank the organizers and also all of you who are attending this conference and share this interest in peaceful end of life. So I'm going to talk a bit today. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to talk about the moral locus of control in hastened death when faced with irremediable health conditions. So this is some research that was done by one of our exit guides, Robert Blake. It appears in the journal Mortality, and it was published in April of 2023. So his article explores the personal beliefs and moral processing of those who make the decision to hasten death. And specifically, these are people who do not qualify for state-supported physician aid in dying. And they decide to take control of managing their own death anyway when faced with irremediable health conditions. So our volunteer exit guides noticed over time that these people tended to have strongly held beliefs, self-directed attitudes, feelings, and beliefs about both living and dying. And so he undertook the research to expand our understanding about how this group of people who choose to hasten death may be different from the general population. A chi-square test was applied to determine any significant differences between the final exit network group and the comparison groups. I will say that the sample is lacking in diversity. The final exit network group, 95% self-identified as white, 2% Black American, 2% Hispanic, and 1% Asian Indian. So we want to present here a new concept for a strong, non-religious moral argument and grounding for understanding and supporting people who choose to hasten their death when they're faced with these irremediable health conditions. The methodology used was to collect information about education, spiritual orientation, and belief in afterlife, beliefs in regard to personal locus of control, and also their basis for moral decision-making from this group of people who decided to hasten their death. The results showed statistically significant, very high levels of education, and this was unsurprising. Data collected in Oregon for more than 20 years shows that the people who do choose MAID tend to be highly educated. The final exit network group was even more so, with 38% having advanced degrees. These people also held less traditional religious beliefs. They lacked a belief in a conscious afterlife, had a high feeling of internal locus of control, and a high sense of internal moral authority. So Blake concluded that these personal and belief factors combine to create a concept that he refers to as a high internal moral locus of control. So this leads us to think about a couple of questions. First of all, why is an action viewed as morally acceptable by some people, yet morally reprehensible by others? And in ethical decision-making, is there a connection between how people choose and what they choose? So let's look for a moment at how our data was collected and against what it was measured. So it was collected in 2020 and 2021 from a group of 101 applicants to Final Exit Network. And these applicants, as part of the process, were asked to complete a research questionnaire with questions about the things that I've already identified: education, spiritual orientation, and so forth. And they were compared with the general US population using various sources such as the Census Bureau, data gathered by the Pew Research Center, and so forth. As I said, the results around education were unsurprising, but there were other factors that could bear on the decision to hasten death. So looking at spiritual identity and belief in an afterlife, the Fenn group was less traditionally religious than the general public. 47% described themselves as atheist, agnostic, or none, and a large group of 20% didn't answer the question. And Blake considers that often as skipping the question because it doesn't apply to you. So this group was largely not traditionally religious. And compared to 17% of all Americans, a statistically different 50% of Fenn clients said they did not believe in a conscious afterlife. So next, looking at the source of moral authority. That was assessed with a forced choice question or statement, and these were the two parts. First of all, there are some predetermined standards about what's right and wrong and how we should live. And the other statement was, we each have to decide for ourselves what's right and wrong and how to live. And a statistically significant 74% of the Final Exit Network group asserted being their own ultimate source of authority for moral decision making. On the issue of locus of control, that was also assessed with a forced choice statement. The first being, most outcomes in our lives are a result of our own decisions and actions. Or, most outcomes in our lives are predetermined by events, people, and forces over which we have little control. Fenn applicants did not identify themselves with an internal locus of control that was significantly higher than the already high US population. And some could guess that that's because of the sort of American idea of rugged individualism. So people would define themselves as having an internal locus of control. However, the Fenn group did reject endorsement of the alternative high external locus of control at a statistically different rate from the general population. So we can conclude from this that it suggests a concept of a high internal moral locus of control, a high sense of self-directedness in life carries over to end-of-life decision-making. These individuals feel they have the moral right and embrace the opportunity to control their ultimate final decision when life and health circumstances produce an unacceptable and irremediable quality of life. And why does this matter? Well, I think that it's very helpful to those who, like many of you, interact on a regular basis with people making these decisions, to see that these people aren't necessarily aberrant in some way, but that they are looking at death in the same way that they look at their lives as a creative process that they are guiding, or as Lowry said, they're being the captains of their own ship. So with that, I'll conclude. I do have, if you see me at lunchtime, I have some cards with a QR code for our website. And also, you can access the paper through our website. And also, we have a book that can be ordered through the website that is celebrating our 20th anniversary. It's called There at the End, Voices from Final Exit Network. And this includes short stories that we've gathered from both our exit guide providers and the people who've accessed our service. So thank you very much.